Morning. Great. Well, it's 3 minutes after, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. But I wanted to just thank you all for joining us tonight. This is our State of the Organization presentation for Spring 2024. In a lot of ways, this meeting or this presentation is similar to our annual meeting, which is actually required by our bylaws that we do every fall. And it's a way that we update the organization on highlights and challenges and things that are going on in terms of organizational priorities. But it's also an opportunity really to have a conversation with members, because at the end of the day, the Mountaineers is about its community. And so we really want to hear from you on anything that's on your mind, suggestions, questions, ideas, et cetera. So we've got plenty of time at the end of the evening tonight to answer any questions you might have. So we started these State of the Organization presentations during the pandemic, and they worked out to be a really nice way for us just to keep everyone updated on things going on around the organization and make sure that we really were keeping our ear to the ground in terms of things that were important to our members and our volunteers and our donors. And so we really appreciate you for being here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll be going through some slides tonight. There'll be a number of different presenters. And then probably in about an hour, we'll open it up for Q&A, and happy to stay on as long as everyone would like. All right, so hopefully you're seeing this beautiful picture of the picket range from last summer. It's Rob Busack. I think I know most of you all, but my name is Tom Vogel. I'm the CEO of the Mountaineers. I've been in my role for about 8 years, and I really have the privilege of serving our community. I too, like a lot of you all, am also a volunteer. I have helped out with our alpine climbing course, and I'm also an avalanche instructor. So in addition to my day job on staff of the Mountaineers, I too am a volunteer member and a donor to the Mountaineers. And I just absolutely love this community, and it's a real privilege to serve you all. So thank you for that opportunity. I wanted to start off this evening with a land acknowledgement. We've been doing a lot more intentional work with tribal engagement in recent years, and we actually held our annual spring board retreat at the Tulalip Tribes Reservation at the Hebold Cultural Center up in Tulalip this spring. And it was really struck by a lot of things in just reflecting on the history of the Pacific Northwest and how we interact with public lands, our shared love for the outdoors. And I just wanted to begin the evening by just acknowledging all of the amazing work and dedication of our tribes here in the Pacific Northwest, and the ways that they have stewarded the lands that we love for many, many generations, literally for time immemorial. And just remind us all that as we go about the pursuit of our mission, we elevate and really honor the tradition of the tribes here in the Pacific Northwest by interacting with the natural world in a mindful way, by teaching our students how to be safe and responsible outdoor participants, and by ways in which we advocate for the natural world and we go about stewardship. So we're really grateful for their support of these places that we love here in the Pacific Northwest, and I appreciate you just keeping those things in mind as we go about pursuing our mission as the Mountaineers. I also want to welcome some of our new directors and branch chairs. These are leaders that give to the organization in a lot of different ways, in addition to their roles leading courses and getting people in the outdoors. So we have a number of new officers that stepped into their terms this spring. Rich Draves is our new vice president. Amanda Pirro is vice president of branches. Vanessa Wheeler is our secretary, and Mark Kerr as vice president of outdoor centers. I should also mention that Manisha Pawar, our new president, who was our vice president for the last 2 years, isn't able to join us tonight. She's at a work event in which she's one of the keynote speakers. So she sends her regards and wishes she could be here tonight. In terms of our at-large directors, we had 3 new at-large directors this past fall: Dave Foong, Mark Walters, and Robert White. And then Mike Riley, a longtime Olympia branch member, stepped into the Olympia branch director role. In terms of branch chairs, Melissa White, Mandy, in the Kitsap branch, Mandy Maycumber in Olympia, Glory Dole in Seattle, and Natalia Martinez Paz in Tacoma. So welcome and thank you for all of our leaders for the roles they play. And thank you. I just like to look around this group. I think most of you are volunteers or leaders in some capacity. And so thank you for your service to the organization and our members. So I wanted to start just with a handful of overall highlights, and then we're going to go into some specific updates in our strategic plan. But we're in a really good place as an organization. We're going to talk, in a very direct way about some of the challenges we face, and we certainly, as Mountaineers, we don't shy away from challenges. But I think it's a great place to start. That we are in a really great place as an organization. We continue to have strong growth in membership, and we're now 16,000 members strong. When I started my role about 8 years ago, we were a little over 10,000 members. So, we're not pursuing growth for its own sake, but it's really wonderful that we're able to serve more and more people that want to connect with the natural world. And our community is really rooted in exceptional volunteerism and generosity. You're going to hear that theme over and over again tonight. It's really, in so many ways, our community is just the bedrock of the Mountaineers, and it's really amazing. I'm also really proud of the fact that we continue to be, a lot of organizations talk about being like a mission-based organization, but the Mountaineers truly lives that in so many different ways. And I really think it's amazing. And we come back to both our mission and our core values as these important North Star touch points for us. It's really pervasive in our strategic plan. And I think the way that we go about our day-to-day pursuit of our mission. So I'm really proud of that. I know in some of the questions that came in ahead of the State of the Org meeting tonight, there was a question or two about our financial position. We're not going to go into a lot of details about numbers, although I'll be happy to answer any questions. But our financial position is really strong. And we're utilizing our strong financial position in terms of the resources that we have in our reserves, as well as the fact that we're strong from an operational financial standpoint to invest back in the organization and things like our volunteers, our website, our staff, things like protecting public lands. So we're leveraging the fact that we're on solid ground to make critical investments in our future. And I think notably, I'm happy to talk about this later as well, but the KETA lawsuit is now in our past, which is I'm personally very happy for, because it was an enormous time sink. And we're just really looking forward now to hopefully a new chapter of partnership and working together with the KETA Legacy Foundation, especially as neighbors out in Kitsap. So we're really glad to put that behind us and to be moving forward. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to go kind of section by section through our 3 strategic priorities in our strategic plan. We rolled out our new strategic plan, Adventure with Purpose, a year ago. And I mentioned just a minute ago that really our organization and everything we do is rooted in our mission, our vision, and our core values. And so I think it's just a good reminder. I'm not going to read every word on this page, but these are really powerful words. And I would encourage you to go back and just periodically, read these things. We really sweated the details on every point that's on this slide, and they were important touch points for us in the development of the strategic plan. And we not infrequently, when we have a thorny issue we're working through or something, we come back and we really look at these individual values. We look at our mission, we look at our vision, and they really do serve as an important North Star to us. The framework of our strategic plan is we start with our mission, vision, values. And so on this page here, we've got our vision, Adventure with Purpose. And then under that, we have these 3 strategic priorities: lead innovation in outdoor education, engage a vibrant community of outdoor enthusiasts, and to advocate on behalf of the natural world. And under each one of those strategic priorities, we have an outcome, which is what we're striving to achieve. And I'm not going to read these yet. We're going to talk about these individually in each of the 3 sections that we're about to jump into. But when you read these vision outcomes, these are bold statements. In a lot of strategies, you hear people talk about kind of big, hairy, audacious goals. And in a lot of ways, these vision outcomes are sort of our big, hairy, audacious goals, or our BHAGs. And so these are the things that we're striving to achieve. We may not get fully there in the the next handful of years, but this is what we're trying to achieve with this plan. So now I want to jump to lead innovation in outdoor education, and we're going to go kind of section by section. So Tom Helleberg and I are going to go through lead. I'm actually kind of playing the role of Becca Polglaze, who is our education and operations director, who is actually at our staff retreat the next 3 days. So I'm kind of playing Becca's role. So I may not be quite as conversant on the details of her section, but I'll do the best job that I can. So here's just a little bit more detail about our lead strategic priority. And the vision outcome here is that anyone who's inspired to learn outdoor skills has that opportunity with the Mountaineers. And that's big, because today, with a lot of our most popular courses, we have to turn people away because we just don't have the capacity, whether that's because of permits or enough volunteers or field trips or whatever else. So that's a big goal that we're striving for. And then we have these 3 goals that live under that. And for each of our 3 strategic priorities, we have 3 goals, just to kind of have this all be symmetrical. And so on the following slides, you'll see some references to L1 or L3 or E2 or E3, et cetera. And those correspond to these individual goals. This whole strategic plan is on our website. I'd really encourage you to spend the time reading it if you haven't already. But we're going to give you some highlights and talk about where we're heading tonight under each of these 3 strategic priorities. So starting off for some of the highlights under lead, one of the things that we converted to this year was instead of doing like a big leadership recognition dinner for the whole organization, we did individual branch banquets, and they were a terrific success. I was able to attend 2 of those this year. It was a blast. I was out in Kitsap and then down in Olympia. And it was a really wonderful way to both recognize the organizational-wide accomplishments, but to do it on a way that was kind of a little bit closer to our individual communities. So that was definitely a win for us as well. Alpine Ambassadors is a program that is kind of a continuing education program for some of our most tenured climb leaders. And we had more applications than we had spots this year, which is really great. And it just is a sign of the way that we're investing back in our volunteers. We hope over time to create some additional opportunities like Alpine Ambassadors for our other activity areas as well. I know there's some really good continuing education that's going on across the organization for our various leaders, but this was definitely a win for us this year. We also had a big milestone this past fall. We've been working on national climbing standards with some partner organizations like the Mazamas down in Portland, the Appalachian Mountain Club, the American Alpine Club, and we achieved UIA, which is international accreditation, this past fall for sport and trad climbing and top rope. We're going to be working on some additional standards, but it's really a great example of the way that we're continuing to try to invest in the quality of our programs and doing that through standards-based approach. And then already year to date, participation in our leadership development program has exceeded the full year for last year, which is really great. So we've been investing a lot in creating courses and clinics and leadership conferences, and participation in all of those has already exceeded last year's full year by 11%, which is really amazing. In terms of some other highlights, we've increased our staffing for land manager relationships. Betsy will probably reference that a little bit later when she talks about advocate on behalf of the natural world. We've begun some really interesting conversations with some different organizations, including Seattle Mountain Rescue, as well as some private organizations and local government out in North Bend about participating in a climbing center that is probably years in the making, but it's really interesting that we've got this going, and so you'll hopefully be hearing more about that in the months ahead. So I'm happy to answer some more questions about that later, but I'm personally very excited about that. And we also received a really significant donation at the end of last calendar year, $500,000 from the Holocene Foundation. That's going to be invested in our lodges over the course of the next few years. So we've already been doing a lot of work on lodges revitalization. If you haven't been up to our lodges recently, there's been a lot of work that's already taken place, but there's more work to be done. And so this donation by the Holocene Foundation is going to be some really great seed money that we hope will actually attract maybe some additional donations, some participation in those projects. But it's really exciting that we've had this commitment to our lodges. And I'll kick it over to Tom Halibert to talk a little bit about some highlights in Mountaineers books that's a part of Lead Innovation and Outdoor Education.
Thanks, Tom. So the L3 objective is kind of all about the category leading outdoor education titles. And I got to say, we have a wonderful season behind us, a wonderful season ahead, culminating with Freedom 10. And so a few titles here from the most recent seasons, the fall behind us and the spring that we're currently in the midst of. I wanted to call out Ian Nicholson's Climbing Self-Rescue here on the left. There you go. The Mountaineers Outdoor Experts series is kind of the elevated, deeper dive into specific disciplines. We had a little bit of a series refresh on that line in 2019 with Pete Whitaker's beautiful crack climbing edition, crack climbing book. And that kind of catalyzed a redesign of the series and then a hard look at how we're going to refresh and progress through that. And so Ian Nicholson's Climbing Self-Rescue is the first one out with the new black cover design endorsed by the AMGA, which is kind of a new objective here when we're going out with the expert guides to get those connections with other credentialing organizations. Very happy with that. We'll see more on that in a moment. We also have Jeanette Stowski's The Outdoor Leader, recently released. This is kind of the spiritual successor to John Graham's great outdoor leadership book. She is executive director at the Association of Outdoor Recreation and Education. And the book really builds upon kind of a broad spectrum of experts bringing different perspectives and approaches to outdoor leadership. So we think that's excellent. And then we have the new edition of Rob Casey's Paddling the Salish Sea. This is an expansion on the prior Puget Sound paddling book. Very excited to have that out. We can go to the next one here. Looking ahead, this is what I was foreshadowing with the continued refresh of the Mountaineers Outdoor Experts series. We've got Will Gadd's Ice and Mixed Climbing and new backcountry skiing from Martin Volk and Scott Shell and Margaret Wheeler coming out in the fall ahead of us. These are still a few months away, but it's when we commit to this kind of refresh, it takes a couple of years to get the titles spooled up, but once they start hitting, we get a fairly steady flow of books coming through. So we'll see these in the fall, and then this will continue into the spring and fall of 25. We also have Tammy Asar's refreshed Hiking the Wonderland Trail, second edition coming out in the fall. So it's a very good list, very dedicated to kind of the core mountaineering skills and education titles. And we can go to the next, and there is Freedom of the Hills, 10th edition is right around the corner. Files will be going off to the printer probably within a matter of weeks here. We'd given a sneak preview at a prior board meeting, but here is the finished cover of Freedom 10 featuring Dawa Yangsam Sherpa. Tremendous team effort here, driven by past President Eric Linksweiler and Laura Schauger on staff at Mountaineers Books, but the contributions across the membership and the committees and councils has been monumental. 5 years in the works from first kickoff meeting until this book is going to hit shelves. And there we go.
And then in terms of some challenges, I said earlier, where we're not shying away from the challenges. There's been a number of areas from a staff bandwidth standpoint that was pretty challenging in our first and second quarters. I think a lot of you are aware that Jeff Bowman passed away in December, and that not only rocked our community from just a personal loss standpoint, and he's just was such a remarkable member of our community, but from a pure staff standpoint in terms of his role and the importance of the investment in our website and all the work that he was leading there. It's also been a difficult thing. So we're on the verge of hiring a couple of folks that are going to be taking on his role, but certainly bandwidth has been challenging in a number of areas, including with the loss of Jeff. Another area that is a priority for us, but it's been a challenge, is e-learning. We continue to want to provide greater support for our volunteers running courses and building out e-learning courses. SSO stands for single sign-on, and it's basically makes it an easier process to link together CoAssemble, which is our e-learning platform, with sign-on and registration on our website. And so that's been sort of an elusive project for us. We hope to get that done in the very near future, but that's been a challenge as well. And then Tom, I think this L3 is yours.
Yeah, we are still emerging from a little bit of a new title production slump coming out of the pandemic. A lot of people thought, oh yeah, I'll use the slowdown here to sit down and crank out a manuscript, and they're taking care of kids, they're taking care of family, they're doing all the stuff that we all had to do during that. And so we had a little bit of a lull on new titles coming in during the pandemic. And in tandem with that, we tried to move up our seasonal launches by about 4 months in order to give more lead time from the time books arrive in warehouse to the time we start shipping, in part due to the supply chain crunch around the pandemic, stressing some schedules on some new releases. So more cushion means we have more time to promote and push those titles out into kind of marketing and review channels. But it also means that we had to develop those seasons faster in order to move those dates back. The good news on this is that spring 24 is kind of our lowest front list catalog out of recent years, and things are very much back on track in fall 24 with Freedom 10 coming out, and then a projected 36 titles into 2025, which is getting towards that 35 to 40 title output that we're looking for as a steady state.
Great, thanks. And then in terms of just some of our upcoming priorities and actions, one of the things that is really top of mind for us is looking at some of the roadblocks to some of our most popular courses where we've seen capacity constraints, and so that's that analysis has been something that's been a little bit slow to get started, but that is a really high priority for us. Forum options refers to some software that we would like to incorporate into our website that would just better facilitate conversations within courses, within branches, all the various operating units across the Mountaineers. And we've had consistent feedback from folks, whether members or leaders, that this is something they want to see on our website. So we've got some options there. That is, we're bringing on a couple of new staff members to support us from a technology standpoint. That'll be one of our top priorities. Likewise, we're continuing to work on supporting leaders on e-learning. A lot of that is simply providing staff support as people are building content and being familiar with with our team or with our tool. That tool is intended to really be kind of open source, where folks that are running courses and building courses have the ability to create e-learning content to augment what we're doing in person, and we want to provide staff support to help with that. And then the North Bend climbing facility is its early stage, but it's pretty exciting, and it's something that you'll hopefully hear more about in the months ahead. And so there's a number of us that are personally involved in that, and it's a really exciting opportunity for us. And then Tom, I think you've got the next two bullets, and then we'll transition over to advocate. Or, I'm sorry, to engage.
We're expecting Freedom 10 in the warehouse come August, with a big launch in various ways in September. And we're excited about just having a kind of a launch party paired with events at the branches in order to both celebrate contributors and to kind of do a roadshow about what's new and different with the new edition. Great opportunity to get out there and meet with membership, meet with the branches, and really honor the contributions.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. Then we have an item here where we, as part of the 24 budget, we added one headcount in our design and production team at Books in order to better support both reprints and new title creation get a little more efficient and do a little bit less outsourcing. And we're happy to say that that hire was done as of April 1st, and things are trucking right along.
Great. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Bree and Christina to talk about engage a vibrant community of outdoor enthusiasts now.
Awesome, Tom. Thank you so much. My name is Bree Vanderlinden, she, her pronouns, and many of you, I've been serving you over the last year as your development director, and I'm now stepping into a new position as director of community engagement here at the Mountaineers. Tom will talk a little bit more, where we'll highlight that along the way as well. So Tom, go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is Tom previewed in the lead section. This is just a page directly from our strategic plan. Highly recommend that you read it or become familiar if you haven't already. This is the one-page view of our strategic priority, engage, and our vision of a future where every individual can find inspiration and belonging in the outdoors through Mountaineers community programs and books. The 3 goals we'll talk about tonight and that we've set to move towards this vision is cultivate an organizational culture of equity and belonging, expand youth programs to foster lifelong connections with the outdoors, and deepen our culture of giving back by providing new opportunities to contribute. So as you heard, we're going to be in the lead section, we'll share highlights, challenges, priorities. I'm going to hand off to my colleague Christina to kick us off.
Thanks, Bree. Hi, everyone. Christina Ciari, she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Membership and Communications. And for the last big handful of years, I've been overseeing just our member engagement pipeline as well as our equity and inclusion work. And I'm also here representing our youth team today. So there's a number of great things we've been doing around engagement. We have continued to expand and hone in on our leadership development series. And we also expanded our leadership conference this year, offering for the first time 2 conferences, one in Seattle and one to South Sound. And we're looking forward to continuing to do that in the future. We're also having conversations around aligning our org-wide equity and inclusion strategies with existing branch level power structures to try to embed equity and inclusion lens at every level of our organization. And we have a new summer camp offerings this year. We're growing partner programs in the South Sound. So if you haven't seen, we'll be having summer camps in Renton this year, and we're also offering them on the east side to our Foothills branch. And just a quick shout out to Alpine Rising. This is by award-winning writer Bernadette McDonald. It's a timely and important book about the evolution of climbing in the Himalaya and in the Karakoram, focused on the relationship between people who live amongst these mountains and the people who came to climb them. And stories like this are one of the many ways that we amplify work from communities of people who've been historically excluded from the outdoors and to try to create an outdoors where all people feel belonging. Back to you, Bree.
Thanks, Christina. I feel very official here. I think from a fundraising program standpoint and being able to offer community members a way to deepen their giving, we engaged in a philanthropic program review over the last year. While the Mountaineers has been around for 118 years now, I often have to pause and remind myself that we've only been a 501c3 since 2011, which is a relatively short time compared to the length of history of the organization. And a couple points along the way, we've engaged some outside expertise to help us evaluate how we're doing. We did this in 2017 when I first joined the team, and we received some great feedback. We were doing well, we are doing well, and at that time, we still had a lot of foundational building to do, and received some news as far as our growth and recommendations for doing infrastructure and investment in staff. And this last year, we engaged the same team again to see like, okay, we're emerging out of a 5-year cycle, even through a pandemic. How are we doing? And one of the biggest takeaways, the headline of that report was, we're going from good to great. There's still a lot of foundational work that we can do, but we have even more confidence in our ability as a fundraising team and the way we can lean in to including that as part of the way we want to invest in our mission in the next 5 years and supporting the strategic plan. So part of that includes recommendations on leadership and culture building, our donor engagements. We we heard that we do a fantastic job focusing on relationships. I think that is something that we'll always hold as our North Star when it comes to community engagement and donor engagement, and communications as far as defining our unique value of as an organization and what our universal identity is. Well, we also received some recommendations to refine the way we are staffing the work. You know, as the program grows, I'm sure many of you have experienced, you may have a new position that takes on just a little bit of a couple of things, and it's exciting to see the program grow in a way where we can now start to refine those positions and focus our work in a more concerted way. And Tom will talk a little bit more about that later. The development committee has officially launched, which is very exciting. It had been silent for about 10 years, and excited to recruit some new members. If you or anyone you know would be interested in supporting that work, we're meeting virtually. We have morning meetings about once every other month at this time. So please reach out if you're interested in supporting that work as a volunteer. And then next, one of the most exciting things is to talk about our fundraising results. We are now stretching into $2 million of a philanthropic goal each year, which is incredible because I think we were just hitting $1 million when I first came on. Our Ridgeline membership was launched this year. We now have 74 households who are giving at the $500 level, which has already surpassed our goals, and we're only halfway through the year. Peak Society, which represents our donor households who give $1,000 or more, there's 367 families who give at that level. And Summit Society, which recognizes those who've included the Mountaineers in the state plans, is now at 91 households, which is exciting. Just 9 more to reach 100, which we kind of laugh around. If everyone in this meeting joined, we would surpass that number. Finally, our calendar year-end appeal surpassed our $200,000 goal. Freedom of the Hills hit 50,000 fundraising goal, and our gala, which we had 620,000 goal, by far surpassed, and we're at 660,000. So we're very exciting to see this momentum. There's some challenges too we're keeping our eye on, which is a great pivot into our next slide.
Great, thanks, Bree. We're just going to be tag teaming here. And Tom, would you mind making Bree or I a co-host, please? So one of the challenges that we face in this area that we also saw that Tom talked about before was just providing robust technology support for all of our key priorities. This was a challenge before Jeff passed away, and it has been just something that we're limping along until we're able to hire some new folks. So excited to see how some of the things that we have in the pipeline can continue to change our engagement with our community, but for right now, it does remain a challenge. Another challenge is just discovering and identifying the best pathways for equity and inclusion engagement across our community. So if you can't tell what this crazy visual is on this screen, it's actually our org chart. And as you can see kind of on the right under branches, those are all of our branch committees and our activity committees that oversee the majority of the work that we have. And so we have just quite a dispersed volunteer-led organizational structure, which can make engagement challenging. And so that's why we're trying to plug into the existing pathways. And then another challenge has just been reestablishing our youth partner programs in Seattle post-COVID. A lot of those programs were reliant on just kind of the momentum from happening year after year. And so restarting those, reestablishing the relationships with our partners has been a challenge. And as I said earlier, we're offering a new Foothills camp. We've had some challenges just getting momentum there as well. So if you happen to live on the east side, I-405, I-90 corridor, we have summer camp for you, day camp this summer for kids age 6 to 12. Please help us spread the word.
Yes, please. Love to engage some more kiddos on the east side. As I mentioned, we are hitting our goals incredibly well, which is amazing because I know a number of nonprofits are not experiencing the same level of success, but like other nonprofits, we're also experiencing a decrease in overall number of donors. And this is something that we saw early in our calendar year end, and even even pre-COVID numbers is kind of where we're sitting at the under $500 donor participation. We are seeing increased level at the higher giving amounts, which is helping to make up for the gap. But it's something to keep our eye on, and why we may be putting extra effort into some of our appeals to support participation. So I'll talk about our priority around our spring fundraising drive, which kicks off with Give Big next week. And then, as I mentioned, the realignment and transition across multiple roles. So part of that is reimagining the member services team and the fundraising team as one big umbrella, and kind of wrapping our arms around what the member experience is to support ways to see folks who are members and volunteers and donors as one journey across the organization, instead of separating out into different pathways. We're really excited for that change and believe it is a really strong and important shift in the way we serve our members and volunteers. And of course, transition often just takes a lot of our time, and trying to pop up new roles as we're continuing to be in the thick of it in fundraising season. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks. Apologies there. So our priorities, building these communication pathways, we've talked about that a lot. So that's what we're going to continue to be focusing on. Huge kudos to Robert White, who is the chair of our Equity and Inclusion Committee, leading this work. We're also continuing to focus on growing the cohort of volunteers engaging with our E&I e-learning courses and materials. We've focused a lot on creating amazing pathways. We have an emotional safety in the outdoors course, in addition to equity and inclusion sections of our leadership and instructional trainings. And we'd love to see broader adoption of these, and just folks more conversant in these topics and helping everyone feel belonging at the outdoors. This year, we also launched a sexual harassment and sexual assault prevention committee, which is just assuring that we are doing all the work we can to keep people in our community physically and emotionally safe. And then we're going to continue working on re-engaging with our partner organizations and training and developing youth-specific leaders to help support our youth-led programming.
And as we work on sharing out the impact of the work that you make possible, we're excited to share that our impact report for the fiscal year 23 was finished today. So look for that hitting your inbox. Is the earliest we've had it prepared since 2018, I believe. So very exciting that is moving forward, and excited to share with you so you can have numbers as far as what has been made possible over the last year. We will continue to engage in community listening. I think Tom, myself, Alfie, and anyone on our team is interested in hearing what your experience is like, and any feedback that you have on what it's like to be a member and a donor at the organization. I already had previewed our Give Big. Give Big kicks off our spring fundraising drive. Our goal is to engage 300 members. We're going to be launching a 2024 Supporter Adventure with Purpose badge as a sticker that you can get for participating, one for you and one for a friend. And then we'll continue to work on reimagining our community engagement team and putting together an events calendar for folks over the next year. And finally, next slide. We have some upcoming events. I already talked about our spring appeal. May 28th, you can visit Third Place Books. Craig Romano will be talking about his new day hiking Columbia River Gorge. We have a spring gear grab here at the Seattle Program Center, always popular. I'll drop the link to the events calendar in the chat. We have a donor and volunteer block party that's to honor and appreciate our donors who are giving at the $250 level, as well as our key leaders and super volunteers. And then Betsy and team will be putting on a program update, a virtual event on June 4th. She'll talk about that later. And I think that concludes our engage section.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks, Bree. I'm going to turn it over now to Betsy Rodley, who's our Conservation and Advocacy Director.
Hi, everyone. My name is Betsy Robley, she, her. I am the Conservation and Advocacy Director, and I'm presenting on our Advocate section of the strategic plan. Next slide, please. So our vision outcome for Advocate is that our community makes a meaningful, enduring impact in protecting our planet and the outdoor experience. And we have 3 goals under that vision outcome. The first one is around achieving high impact outcomes for conservation and sustainable recreation access through new and deepened partnerships and policy expertise. The second goal is all about inspiring and equipping our community to be highly effective advocates for climate and the natural world. And the third goal is to act urgently to minimize our organization's impact on the environment. Next slide. So highlights from our conservation and advocacy work this year. We have had a number of successes getting some of our priority pieces of legislation passed. The first one is a bill called the Explore Act, and that's a bill that recently passed the U.S. House of Representatives. Still needs to pass the Senate, but passing the House was a huge step. And that's a bipartisan recreation package of bills, and it includes our long-term priority called the Simplifying Outdoor Access to Recreation Act, or the SOAR Act. And that's work that we've been doing for years to help simplify and demystify the federal recreational permitting process, which creates barriers for groups like the Mountaineers to taking people outside on public lands. So that's something that if it passed the US Congress and got signed into law, that would be a huge victory, and we're ever so close. The second bill I'll mention is a state legislative bill. It's called HB 2165. And this bill actually passed the state legislature this past winter. And this bill, it's a little bit wonky, but it also has to do with permitting. This time are the permits that we get to go out on DNR lands, Department of Natural Resources lands. And it gives the DNR the authority to do cost recovery for permits. So if they can charge for permits, that means they can actually provide staff that help us navigate that permit system and make it easier for our programs and courses to get permits to take people out on DNR lands. So those are 2 really exciting initiatives that really relate to both our A1 strategic priority and also our LEAD strategic priority, since we know that getting permits to take groups out on courses is such an impediment to getting people to experience the natural world. Second exciting highlight of the past year is we've really deepened our tribal engagement. We've been working with partner organizations in Outdoor Alliance Washington, which is a coalition of outdoor recreation organizations we lead in Washington. And we've really been investing in the ability to build relationships with local tribes and support their conservation priorities, and discuss how we as the Mountaineers and other organizations can help advance their priorities, either through educating our community to be responsible recreationists, as Tom mentioned at the beginning, or advocating together for funding to preserve our natural spaces. Third exciting initiative under the A1 goal is that we are representing outdoor recreation on the Northwest Forest Plan Federal Advisory Committee. And by we, I mean me. I'm sitting on this Federal Advisory Committee that's made up of 22 members who are advising the Forest Service on reforming how land is managed throughout our national forests in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. It's a forest plan that hasn't been updated in 30 years, and so we need to update it to address the threat of climate change and wildfire. Lots of exciting work going on there. So moving to our A2 goal, getting our Mountaineers community to advocate for conservation and recreation. We have a new e-learning course. It's called Advocacy 101. You can see the badge right there on the right-hand side. And this was released in January. We've had just over 50 people graduate from the course and another 100 people sign up to take it. This gives our community just all the basics on how to be an effective advocate. So really recommend folks checking that out. Another success this year is the publication of the book Salmon, Cedar, Rock, and Rain. This is a wonderful book that talks all about the Olympic Peninsula and how people can appreciate that landscape and advocate to protect it, including one of our other main policy priorities, the Wild Olympics, Wilderness and Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. And then finally, in terms of our A3 goal, we are excited to announce that our Tacoma Program Center is officially net zero. So it has solar panels on the roof and energy efficient appliances, even a battery bank that allows it to be powered exclusively from the solar panels in the event of an emergency. And so we're really proud that we have our first program center at the Mountaineers that is net zero carbon emissions. So challenges in terms of our A1 goal, I'm sure if you've been following the news, there are just some increasing limitations on access. And I would say that's both a challenge and an opportunity. It's a challenge, for our programs and courses, just a little bit more challenging to navigate that red tape and bureaucracy to be able to get people out on public lands, challenges for our members as well. But it's also an opportunity for us to advocate for the needs of our community and also the needs of the natural world, to both balance recreational access along with conservation and protection needs. This should come as no surprise to anyone, but advocacy in an increasingly polarized country is a big challenge. We have had some amazing successes at the federal level. I mentioned the Explore Act, and that's because outdoor recreation is a bipartisan issue. It's something that we see success in both Democratic and Republican administrations. But it's just harder to get anything done in Congress, including bills where everyone agrees it's a good thing and wants to move them forward. We're seeing more opposition to new wilderness proposals, and so that's just some headwinds we face as we try to advance our priorities in Congress. In terms of A2, engaging our members, throughout the last few years, we've seen declining engagement in our action alerts, and that's something we're not exactly sure the root cause. It could be because everyone is just flooded with email and they don't necessarily see our action alerts come through. It could also be that there's maybe this sense that taking action on conservation issues isn't quite as urgent right now as it maybe was during the previous administration. But that's just something that we're watching, because our effectiveness as advocates really relies on more people in our community taking action and making their voices heard. And then finally, in terms of our A3 goal on carbon footprint reduction, we've had huge success in Tacoma. Our next effort is making our Seattle Program Center carbon neutral. But that requires a much more significant financial investment. And we have a few ideas for ways that we can meet that, but it remains a slightly higher barrier to get there in Seattle than it was in Tacoma. So priorities and actions we're focusing on, we are going to be pushing hard to pass the Explore Act and other priorities through Congress before the end of the year. We're going to go into a bit of a lull during election season, but then things are going to get fast and furious at the end of the year as we try and pass as much as we can before the next Congress takes over. So really keep an eye out after the election for our action alerts, so you can speak up and take action then. The Northwest Forest Plan amendment is happening. We're expecting to see a draft environmental impact statement out this summer, and we'll be sure to let our community know about that when it happens. The best way, by the way, to know about all of these things is to subscribe to Conservation Currents. So make sure you get that e-newsletter of ours. It comes out on the 22nd of every month. We're also continuing that tribal relationship building that I mentioned. We've also had some exciting efforts to help our community learn about Native lands and peoples. We recently published a few blog posts written by a Native organization called Sacred Lands Conservancy. Just published a blog on tribal treaties of the region and what they mean for the outdoor landscapes that we all love and our relationship to them. So highly encourage you to check them out. As Bree previewed, we have a conservation and advocacy virtual event coming up on June 4th. I'll drop the link into the chat to register for that after I'm done presenting, but really encourage everyone to come out for that if you're interested in learning even more about our conservation and advocacy work and opportunities to take action. We have a new opportunity with Outdoor Alliance called the Grasstops Collective, which is engaging some of our members in this kind of elite training program to learn advocacy skills along with outdoor advocates from across the country. And we're excited to share, this hasn't been announced yet, so it's a sneak preview, but our very own Danielle Graham from the Mountaineers is going to be participating in the first cohort of the Grasstops Collective. And so she's going to be learning all about how to be a super advocate, and we'll be traveling to DC with us in September to advocate on Capitol Hill. Also exciting news, the Big River book, which you can see there on the right-hand side, is going to be released this year. It's a book, beautiful book about the Columbia River, another very current conservation topic. David Moskowitz is the photographer for that one, so highly encourage you watch out for that when it comes out. And then last but not least, we are going to celebrate the Tacoma Net Zero achievement sometime this summer. So watch out for that celebration to be announced. And we'll also be working towards next steps on reducing our carbon footprint of our Seattle Program Center. And then the next slide is just another pitch to save the date for June 4th. Join our spring conservation policy and advocacy update event, and the link is going in the chat momentarily. So that's it for me. Happy to answer any questions about any of that when we get to our Q&A section. Thanks.
Thanks much, Betsy. Great work. Last but certainly not least, I wanted to give a quick update. It's been referenced a couple of times about a recent realignment that we made as part of our staff team. I think many of you know our staff pretty well, and it's one of my favorite parts of my job is working with just such an incredible team. And one of the things that I admire most about our staff team is just how committed everyone is to supporting our mission, our community. It's a really, really talented, committed group of folks. And but from time to time, we take a look at ways in which we can best serve the organization, and ways in which, maybe realigning resources and reallocating some of our budget around staffs to best support the organization. And so wanted just to share a quick update with you on that. So some of the objectives behind this realignment is, first and foremost, to really support our community mission and our vision, as well as increasing our focus on the needs of Mountaineers members and volunteers. And this shouldn't come to any surprise to any of you as members who work really closely with our staff, but that's first and foremost on our mind. Also looking for ways that we can improve our staff culture and the working environment, how our teams work together. When I started, our organization was quite a bit smaller 8 years ago, and we've grown a lot as a staff team as we've increased the resources supporting the organization. And so as you grow, some of the things that can come up to that create some friction or challenges between teams. And so we're looking at ways in which we can just best align our work around how work actually gets done across the organization. We're also trying to provide greater support for a culture of philanthropy that Bree talked about earlier. And so, changing Bree's title and increasing her scope of responsibility as part of that, as well as even things just like, trying to allow me to spend more time actually out, meeting with donors, with volunteers and in the community as part of our design as well. And then last but not least, to really best position us for implementation of our strategic plan, as well as our highest impact program areas. So some of the specific changes that we rolled out is one that we have made some changes around our leadership team, and specifically, I think a lot of you know that the Sarah Ramsey recently left the Mountaineers. We promoted Michelle Song into Sarah's role. And we have gotten some things off of Michelle's plate to actually increase the amount of focus and bandwidth within her team to really support on volunteer development and volunteer engagement. And so I highlighted earlier the fact that we've already this year had higher engagement in 2024 around leadership development than we had in all of 2023, which is kind of amazing. We're only, not even 2/3 of the way through the year, but we're going to continue to double down on the ways that we're supporting our volunteers. And this is one of the ways that we're doing that. We also are creating kind of a greater focus around our operations area. And so our operations team is basically providing a broad range of support, from things like supporting our outdoor centers and our program centers to risk management, responsibility for our gear library, permit administration, as well as vehicle management. Previously, a number of these areas were sort of scattered about in different teams. And so we're kind of bringing them together in one team that's going to be more focused around operations. And then we're also adding some additional bandwidth. So one of the adds to staff that was approved by the board of directors as part of our annual budgeting plan is in the operations area. And so this is one of the areas that we're creating greater investment in. We also are creating some additional focus and resources for some areas that both benefit members and volunteers as well as staff in human resources and information technology and around our website. So I mentioned earlier about the fact that Jeff's passing was absolutely tragic on just so many levels. And we intentionally took our time on trying to really make sure that we had a good plan for how we were understanding all the responsibilities that Jeff was shouldering and how we could best staff for those going forward. And so part of what we've done is we've actually separated out some of the responsibilities that Jeff had between information technology and data analytics, which is part supporting staff around desktops and laptops and software and that sort of thing, but also supporting volunteers like branch chairs, treasurers, et cetera, with data analytics. So that's going to be a separate role reporting into Rich Hine, our Director of Finance and Administration. And then a distinct role, which is around technology experience and the website and all the technologies that support our community. And so that's going to be a separate role that's going to be singularly focused around all of the ways that we use technology to support our community. We're making some good headway on both of those roles, and we expect to have folks named and in place in those in the next month or so. And then we're also adding some human resource resourcing. This isn't going to be a dedicated staff role, but we are close to hiring an organization to provide a little bit more dedicated focus. This has been something that we've kind of limped along as best we could. It's been Rich, our Director of Finance and Administration, has done a great job with this area, but we really are at the point where we have a need for some more dedicated HR support. So we're excited to have some additional resources there as well. Bree mentioned earlier about her new title as Director of Community Engagement. And this is a pretty big change for us, taking what was previously our development team that's grown literally from a department of one 12 or 13 years ago to a more specialized department, and growing our philanthropic capabilities that really fuel a lot of the mission driving important impact areas that we have that we couldn't do otherwise if we didn't raise money. But it's also incorporating some really important areas like our events, ways that we engage our community through things like the Gala, Banff, Be Wild, our Beta and Brew series, et cetera, as well as communications and then membership. And so part of the goal here is really to have a more holistic focus on how we are engaging and supporting members of our community. And we really are excited and grateful for Bree to step into this broader leadership role. So thank you for that, Bree. With that, I think we are ready to stop talking at you, and I'm gonna stop this screen share. Even though I love this picture of Felicia, I get a big smile on my face every time I see this. But I think we're gonna stop sharing now, and I will also stop recording. And we'll open it up for Q&A or for